All right, got it going. That's so cool. I've never done this before on Zoom, y'all. So this is all new and learning for me, and I like it. All right, so share. So if you have your phone and you go to our Grass Our Roots page, you can share the Facebook Live as well. So I'm gonna share that to there. And back on here. Oh, it's a lot of South Memphis people in the house. All right. We see.
Hey, shout out to South Memphis. They came for me. That's
They
them
came
my
from
folks.
you.
Them my people. Shout out to 38106.
Who else we got? And some Midtown people too. Midtown folks too. Mhm. Mhm. So excited for this conversation. And just as see some folks in the chat. Okay, I see your zip code. All right, that's fine. But this kind of originated from just some Facebook banter, if you will, talking about gentrification and what that means. So I figured that this would be a good time to really get some good thoughts out there and see what folks think. We'll start in a bit, right at 6. Still have some people coming in. Folks are on live as well. Got about 20 so viewers on live, got about 40 some people on here. Good conversation.
Let me just say that this is good participation. Oftentimes when we would meet with community people in person, you were blessed to have 30, 40 people show up. So having 60 online is incredible.
Yeah, so we're gonna see. I left it open. I'm not gonna close it. So it can just people can just get on as they will. So I'm gonna have it on there. Well, it's 6:01. So I said I'm gonna stick with being timely, and we can go ahead and get started. Welcome you all to the gentrification discussion, a community series. So I am founder of the nonprofit Our Grass, Our Roots, Michael and Easter Thomas. And what this nonprofit focuses on is mainly progression and collaboration in North Memphis. So since 2014, we have built collaborations and built partnerships across the North Memphis area, from Bearwater, Uptown, New Chicago, Klondike, Hyde Park, Smoky City, Valentine Evergreen, Hollywood, Douglas, and even Frazier, to really just work with community leaders on replicating great projects and positive projects that are working, and trying to bring people together and sharing that information so that actual citizens and neighbors can benefit from what's going on in the community. And today we are having a conversation about the concept, the term, the reality called gentrification. And just the purpose of this is really to start to unpack in a new way of how we're doing conversation now on Zoom and looking and talking through each other. What does that mean in Memphis? Is it present in Memphis? And that's why we brought the people you see before you today. I just want to share with you some of the people who are here. So as you see, we have a lot of South Memphis people who are in the house with us today. But coming up close second to the numbers, all right, we have our north, people from out east, Midtown, Fraser, nobody from Raleigh or Whitehaven today. Okay, that's fine. And Cordova, I won't call you Dirty Dover today, but you're in the house as well. So glad to see everybody. We have some power players and strategists on our panel today that are going to lead in this discussion. But I'm only introducing the moderator and for the hour, Kirsten Cheers. Thank you for coming. Not only is she my classmate, but she is a Memphis millennial who is making her mark and her impact in journalism and Memphis culture. I'll tell you a little bit about Kirsten. She's a communications manager for the law office of the Shelby County Public Defender, graduate student at the University of Memphis, earning her Master of Arts in Communications with an emphasis in media rhetoric. We could have used you yesterday at the she has a Bachelor of Arts in journalism with a minor in political science from the University of Memphis. Cheers is also a writer who has been featured, I know you've seen it, in the Huffington Post, The Root, MLK 50, We Are Memphis, and High Ground News. Cheers ran for Memphis City Council District 4 in 2015 and continues to remain involved in local and electoral politics through digital media management and content curation. So thank you, Kirsten. I'm happy to have you here with us today, and I'm going to turn everything over to you.
Thank you, Michaelin. Shout out to Central High School, the only real high school in Memphis. No, I'm not going to do that because we can start a whole war based on how many people are in this Zoom today. So thank you so much. Thank all of you for joining. Thank our panelists. We're going to jump right in. We know that gentrification is a hot topic today, and with everything that's going on from the pandemic to the protests, a lot of us who have not been engaged before are really engaging now and want to understand what policies and what laws that we can start, that we can look at that affect our everyday lives. We can see it right now from the pandemic. We don't have to get specific, but we know that some leaders who could have stopped this, right? And so we can talk about all day what we can do as everyday citizens to one, hold our leadership accountable, two, better educate ourselves, and three, affect change right in our own community. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about gentrification. I want to start with a quote that Spike Lee gave in 2014. Of course, Spike Lee is a native of New York City. And if we know gentrification in any other part of the country, we've seen it glaringly in New York City. And he said, why does it take an influx of white New Yorkers in the South Bronx, in Harlem, in Bed-Stuy, in Crown Heights for the facilities to get better? He argued. What about the people who are renting? They can't afford it anymore. And this is a quote that he gave during a talk back in Brooklyn in 2014. And we know from Spike Lee's work and from other works that we've seen in the arts and from different pieces of journalism that gentrification has some pros and cons. So let's jump in right here. We're going to get right to our panelists. I am going to introduce our panelists first. And we're going to start with Mr. Brent Hooks. Mr. Hooks is 30 years old. He is a native Memphian and co-founder of All World Project Management, which is a civil engineering and construction management firm where he serves as the chief administrative officer. Brent graduated from the University of Memphis with a degree in accounting and finance. He received his executive MBA with an emphasis in global immersion from Vanderbilt University. With a staff of just under 50, All World operates in Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas, Arkansas, and Alabama. I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Brent. I didn't know y'all were all over the place like that. Shouts out to y'all.
All world, baby.
Yeah, it's real out here. All World has participated in development projects such as Crosstown Concourse, Fairgrounds, Hotel Chisca, South City, the Citizen at Union and McLean, and the Pinch District. So that is Mr. Brent Hook. So we're bringing heavyweights. We bringing real people who know something about what we're talking about. Let's jump on over to Miss Devaney Perry. Miss Perry is the Director of Advocacy at, and I might get this wrong, but I'm going to say Building Memphis. Is that how you, or do you, is it BLDG? Devaney. We'll just keep going.
It's Building Memphis.
Okay, Building Memphis, which stands for Build, Live, Develop, Grow, whose mission is advancing equitable economic development strategies that support neighborhoods. She first joined the team as the Resilient Communities Project Manager for Memphis efforts under the National Strong, Prosperous, and Resilient Communities Challenge, led by Enterprise Community Partners and Low Income Investment Fund. I told y'all we bringing heavyweight. Do y'all hear this bio? That's one whole sentence, okay? Currently, she facilitates policy support, capacity building, and community engagement to community development corporations, stakeholders, and initiatives around equitable investment into Memphis neighborhoods. Devaney has worked with the city of Memphis, where her policy research was instrumental in the restructuring of the city's business development services. In addition, she has worked to advance entrepreneurship and business development in Memphis by developing entrepreneurial programs for working communities, reentry services, and high school students. Devaney received her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from B. Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And she's so decorated, and she has a list of accomplishments and achievements. Her bio is thick, okay? I've had to take a sip of water when I first started reading it. So you have got to, if you are not connected to Devaney on social media, by all means, you are missing out when it comes to staying in tune and engaged here in Memphis. Please follow Devaney. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, girl, but you will actually hear from her. You'll get her expertise right here on this panel. Let's jump over to Mr. Melvin Burgess. Mr. Burgess is the Shelby County Assessor of Property. A graduate of Grambling State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, Melvin Burgess has spent a career spanning over 30 years practicing public sector accountancy. During his tenure at Memphis City Schools, Shelby County Schools, much of it in the superintendent's office and cabinet, Melvin Burgess valued and accounted for the real property and assets of the fourth largest independent public entity in the state of Tennessee. Notably, Melvin Burgess oversaw billions in property and assets building the largest public school merger in the United States history. During his tenure on the Shelby County Commission, Melvin Burgess has presided over record-breaking economic development in and around his district, including the over $9 billion St. Jude Children's Hospital expansion, the Crosstown Concourse revitalization, and an unprecedented housing boom in the Memphis core. So that is Mr. Melvin Burgess. Again, an extensive resume, extensive bio. If you do not know who he is, please get to know him. He is also, I think, one of our leaders who goes unrecognized and uncommended quite a bit for the work that he's been doing in the city of Memphis. So we are so happy to have Mr. Burgess here with us. And then we'll jump over, last but definitely not least, Mr. Eric Robertson. Mr. Robertson is president of Community Lift, an organization that plays a critical role in helping Memphis to become a just city. Since 2011, Lift has been a catalyst for change, working to advance Memphis by accelerating the revival of its disinvested neighborhoods. Lift pursues national relationships and dollars and aligns them with local resources for shared prosperity and inclusive growth. Together, those investments are then strategically distributed in the form of grants and loans, primarily to community development corporations, grassroots leaders, and neighborhood businesses. To complement and enhance Community Lift's ability to carry out its economic mission, Lift has an affiliate, River City Capital Investment Corporation, a community development financial institution that serves as a non-traditional lender to neighborhood businesses. As president, Eric is responsible for oversight of the two organizations, their yearly budget, and shared staff of highly talented and committed professionals. Woo, do y'all need a drink of water? I need a drink of water because we have such decorated folks. Mr. Eric Robertson, we are so happy to have you on this panel today. Such an esteemed panel. So again, y'all, I am pushing you all. Please, please, please follow these folks on social media. All of them have something. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please follow these folks on social media if you want to stay or start engaging in what's going on. These are some people who you need to know. They are the who's who of Memphis. So with all of that, let's jump right on in. This is a question for each of you. What is your definition of gentrification? The second piece to that question is, should we refer to it in a negative or a positive connotation? Again, what is your definition of gentrification? And to you, is it negative or positive? And how do you think we should consider gentrification, as a negative or a positive thing? We will start with, according to my screen, let's start with Devaney. She is the first on my screen.
Okay. All right, everybody can hear me? Great. All right, so gentrification, I would say, is definitely a process where the built environment of a neighborhood is physically transformed. And when I say built environment, I'm talking about your housing structures, your buildings, and your street infrastructure. At every step of gentrification throughout this process, the actors and decision makers have the opportunity to decide the impact of this transformation or development, whether it will have a positive or negative impact on the surrounding people, the businesses, and also the properties. But when we start talking about the negative aspects of gentrification, when we think of historically neglected and disinvested neighborhoods, specifically our Black and Brown communities, gentrification has the ability to displace and replace the residents and the businesses by increasing the value of the land and also increasing the cost of renting and owning for those current occupants. So when we ask, what is gentrification? It's this full out process of just transforming a community. And should it be referred to in a negative or a positive connotation? Based on how a development takes shape, who's involved, whose input is gathered, and who are the decision makers, we can take that information and decide on our own what's the negative or positive impact of this gentrification. So that's my answer.
Awesome. If y'all want to just popcorn in, that's fine, but I'm going to shoot over to Mr. Brent Hooks.
So generally, I would definitely agree with Devaney. She did a great job. I want to start by saying thank you to Councilwoman Michael Easter Thomas. She's put this event together and done a great job. I took a look at what the organization has been doing, and they've been doing a lot in the community, just educating the community on what's been going on. Then I want to thank you, Kirsten, and all the other panelists. This is a great opportunity to discuss a topic that is very, very segregated. Generally, I would say, depending on who you ask, it does really have a negative connotation at this point, but gentrification is an economic term. It is primarily based on, like Devaney said, the economic change in a neighborhood where it's transforming from a lower economic status to a high economic status, where, you know, depending on who you ask and who the ownership is, it can have some detrimental effects. But the negative part really comes from the displacement, which is bad when you are moving people from their homes, their communities, and their neighborhoods, and they are just basically, you know, put in a situation where it's uncomfortable for them. But there are some situations where we've experienced some development and some opportunities in Memphis where displacement hasn't happened. So it really depends on who you ask and what the outcome of the change in the economic status of that environment causes. Me personally, I don't think gentrification is bad. I do think displacement is bad. But I typically, when I communicate with people about changing the environment or trying to improve the economic status of a community, I really don't say gentrification, I like to talk about development, because development and gentrification looks at a few different barometers or a few different ways to measure the economic change. One, you got to look at the income of the individuals who are in their community. You look at the education of the individuals in their community. You also look at the property values of their community. All of those are going from a lower place to a higher place, which in turn, if we look at our community, me being a black male, black man, we want those things. Like if you go to a poor community, they say, yeah, we want a better house. Yeah, we want some more money. Yeah, we want to be smarter. We all want those things, but it just determines how those stakeholders are taken into consideration when that development occurs. But that's my take on, what I think gentrification is.
Awesome. Mr. Burgess?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Yeah. For the most part, I think, all y'all on the same track, with the same answers. Of course, by being an assessor of property, my job is to try to get homes on the road, as well as trying to find new, new properties, so, that we can't keep overburdened the same residential homeowner. That's what's happening now here in Shelby County. And there again, I can let you know, this is that everyone still does not pay their fair share of taxes. And I think, like the young lady said, Miss Perry, I took my daughter down to, this is my second daughter that's finna finish Spelman, and she's a junior. Well, if you're familiar with the Grant Park area, this was gentrified, right? So right across the street, you have like a Chick-fil-A, you got a Kroger's, you got a Bed Bath Beyond, and a Starbucks, right? Now you can walk maybe 10 blocks or less than 2 miles and the neighborhood change, so I'll let you know what has happened. So I think, like Mr. Hook said, it's not a bad thing, because as a parent, we were trying to find a place around the campus where we felt it was safe. And that's what has happened around the campus, or some of the areas in Atlanta. They putting up a lot of apartments, focus on these college students. But however, it's just unfortunate that the only way that the state of Tennessee generates its revenue is by way of property taxes. Currently, right now, when I was on the county commission, I was the one that did the TIF for the Binghamton development over there. And what I did was, before I got on board with that, I talked with Noah Gray. Some of y'all who know Noah, who's a CDC person over there. We had continuously town hall meetings with their residents to assure them that wouldn't happen. And I think so far it went pretty good so far. But I think if you come in on the latter part, trying to develop these CDCs, develop your NDCs, develop your neighborhood groups, you can be really strong. However, with this Orange Mountain initiative that we're doing, I had Dr. Sunderman on my task force, who works for the University of Memphis. He studies that. He has actually told me that we will probably have some properties in Memphis that are at a point of no return. I mean, they're badly gone. So, and that's why I'm doing a thing over in Orange Mountain. But I think y'all on the same page, that you're exactly right. It does bring improvement to the neighborhoods and the community revitalization. However, it still, pushes out some of our people who've been over there, who've been patriots over there for years and years, who will get displaced. So, y'all on the same page.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Robertson.
I too want to say thank you to Councilwoman Easter Thomas and our moderator, Ms. Cheers. Also just want to shout out the Councilwoman for her leadership yesterday on the police residency issue. There's a lot of us who are concerned about the over-policing in Memphis and adding an additional 800 officers. Anyway, so I just want to just thank the Councilwoman for her leadership. In terms of gentrification, I think the word itself, if you're just looking from a purely definition, is a positive definition, but as it has been practiced in real life, it has a negative connotation to it. And I don't think we're going to be able to change that, in part because there are really 4 factors to gentrification. It means that a neighborhood where there has been an influx of higher income people who have higher educational attainment, who are often of a different race, and they often displace the people who were originally in that community. And because of that, that community loses its culture. And we need to think about revitalization, which is the essence of what gentrification means, just again, from a purely definition standpoint. How do we do revitalization in an equitable way where people don't have to be displaced, but they can still have the quality of life, the amenities, all the things that can come to a community when it is revitalized or quote unquote gentrified, but without the loss of culture, without the switching of the predominancy of the race of people who live in that community, and so on and so forth. So that's my answer to that one.
Awesome. I think each of you have given, even though you all mirror or you sing of the same tenor or the same melody as far as your definitions, I think each of you said something that personally stuck with me, and I'm sure stuck with quite a few people in our audience. Before we move on, let me just say, if you have a question, please submit your questions into the comment box. We will get to them. We will have a time for allotted questions. And we have a new poll. Please take this poll that appears on your screen right now. We'll be popping in polls throughout the Zoom. So please complete those polls, and Councilwoman Easter Thomas will provide the results to each of those. So let's move on. Based on your definitions, again, I mentioned earlier Spike Lee in New York City, and we've seen gentrification happen in other cities. And Eric, you said that the definition of gentrification can be positive, but in practice, we've seen historically that it's been quite negative. And so based off of what we've seen and what we know and you all's experience, would you say that we have real gentrification here in Memphis? Have we really seen the peak of gentrification in this city? Have we really seen gentrification just even and from the positive end of the spectrum and even the negative? Have we seen displacement? Have we seen the benefit of development in Memphis? Have we really seen it happen in Memphis the way that we see in other cities? People love to compare us to Atlanta. Have we really scratched the surface? And I'm going to punt that to anybody who wants to jump in. But what is your take on where we are as far as, what phase are we on in regards to gentrification?
I'll start since I went last time to give some others some time to think about, because this is something that I've thought about and have talked about a lot in terms of gentrification in Memphis. My point of view is that we are a ways away, years away from real gentrification happening in Memphis, in part for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. The first, in most cities that are seeing gentrification, you also see those cities growing in population size, so that there is a real competition for the need for space and the need for access to parcels for development and so on and so forth. Memphis has been losing population and most recently has been somewhat stagnant in population. So we don't see that kind of demand, say like a Nashville, which is almost increased in population size by 20 or 30,000, adding additional people each year, or Atlanta or DC, or you just name a place where you think about where gentrification is happening. I will also say that's a place where that city as a whole is seeing population increase. The second part with that, we are seeing some trends. So because we're not necessarily seeing people population increase as a whole, we're seeing people shuffle around. So we see some people moving from the suburbs to downtown, and that's putting pressure on a few communities. In my estimation, That would be our uptown neighborhoods of North Memphis, and then our South City neighborhood kind of bordering downtown. If we are to see gentrification, it's going to happen in those communities faster than some of the other communities, just due to their proximity to downtown and midtown. The other thing is displacement can happen in two ways. There's displacement that you typically associate with gentrification. People come up, and I think Devaney spoke to this, or someone spoke to this, and then the housing values increase, and then people can no longer afford to stay in that community, so then they are forced to move. So that's traditionally how people think about displacement. But what also happens with displacement is, and this is what we've seen in neighborhoods like South Memphis or South City now, or uptown, the city and the broader community has disinvested in that neighborhood or those neighborhoods for the last 50 years or 60 years in some cases. And so because of that disinvestment, because people had schools that were failing, parks that were deteriorating, roads that were in poor conditions, homes that are burned down, vacant lots with overgrown grass, they are constantly watching this year over year. And so they decide to move out of that community because of that disinvestment. And then once you get to a certain point, so many people have moved out, then you have a situation where you can repopulate those neighborhoods. And this is what you see happening in parts of South City and South Memphis and in Uptown. Now, it's still displacement. It's just displacement in a different way. It's displacement through disinvestment versus displacement through investment. So it's a different factor, but until Memphis is seeing real population gains, we won't see widespread gentrification. If it's going to happen, it's likely going to happen in those two communities. Maybe escaping me now, the neighborhood that's closest to Cooper Young, just south of it across the train tracks, Glenview, you might see some things happening there, but we just don't have enough population gain to see it on a level that people are afraid of. So it's my humble opinion.
Let me get Brent to answer that same question, and then we're going to move on to a different question along the same vein. Brent.
Okay, so from what I've seen, we just really to echo Eric, the neighborhoods that he named would be the neighborhoods that would be affected by gentrification. But generally speaking, I would say we have experienced some development, is what I like to say, specifically in the downtown area. So everything bordering downtown has been affected by it. So the zip codes 38103, 38107, 38106, all of them have experienced some improvement and some investment. And you can look up local publications and they'll tell you pretty much the same thing. And some will say gentrification did happen, but the good thing is, I think for the most part, we've been very purposeful in our planning generally, especially with South City. Although they tore down foot homes, we can tell that they built up some new affordable housing over there, which I live downtown myself, so it's really right down the street. And I know several people who live in those affordable homes, and it hasn't really changed the overall demographic of that area prior to what it was before. But we should be, we should understand our market a little bit more. We should understand that, one, we don't live in a volatile market. Memphis, the housing prices in Memphis don't dramatically swing one way or the other. It's just not that volatile like Atlanta, New York, or really like a Dallas or a California, a city in California. We have a pretty stable market, which has allowed us to, along with that purposeful planning, allowed us to kind of avoid gentrification. The other thing is just we don't have a large number of investments when you compare us to a Nashville. You look at the housing price index of Memphis, Nashville, and some of these other locations. I mean, the houses aren't, swinging one way or the other very, very fast in a rapid motion, while, in those bigger, larger cities where they're investing more into the commercial infrastructure, they are experiencing a lot more gentrification.
Awesome. Devaney, let me come to you. You are doing work with Building Memphis. And for those who don't know, can you briefly explain what Building Memphis is and briefly explain your role, but mainly want you to talk about what your organization and your role in particular is doing to combat any of the negative connotations associated with gentrification, if any, and what is some of the, maybe even the conversation or communication that you all are having with community members when you all see these things coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, sure. Building Memphis, it stands for Build, Live, Develop, and Grow, BLDG Memphis. And we are a capacity building organization supporting community development corporations, which we call CDCs in Memphis, that are working on neighborhood revitalization efforts. We're a membership organization, so a number of CDCs throughout the Memphis area have signed up to be members, in which we try to provide them with a lot of the local and national tools and resources for revitalization, as well as we have a very strong policy arm. There are a lot of issues as it relates to redeveloping a neighborhood and community, which must be taken up within our municipal government spaces or our local or federal government spaces. So we exist as a policy think tank, so that those issues that they're working on, we can support that narrative and see that change at a local political landscape. So at Building Memphis, some of the things that we are working on alongside our members that would support equitable development. One of our strongest values within our organization is how do we support equitable development to benefit the neighborhoods and communities of Memphis, most specifically the North and South Memphis areas, especially as our community is projected to change over the coming years and decades. So some of the things that are strongest within our organization, housing. Affordable housing is a very strong policy item and agenda for us, as well as our members. So those CDCs that are working on the purchase of real estate, the home ownership initiatives for their members. I see Steve Lockwood on the call, and many of you in Memphis have likely seen the Fraser Community Development Corporation billboards, which said, why rent for $700 when you can buy for $400? That type of narrative and that type of support to a neighborhood is vital in redeveloping the land, as well as supporting community members to be on the path to home ownership, so that they don't have to deal with some of the things that our renters are dealing with. So affordable housing, transportation policy. One thing about Shelby County, and actually an incident happened yesterday, but Shelby County within the state of Tennessee, Shelby County has the most pedestrian deaths in the state, which is a large issue. I learned recently that Tennessee does not have the laws for jaywalking. And why is this an issue of gentrification? Within our communities, when we see bike lanes, what are our thoughts specific to bike lanes? What type of projection for the future do bike lanes give us, and why? Well, these are conversations that are definitely surrounding neighborhood revitalization as well as gentrification. So we try to make sure that our community stakeholders are involved in these conversations with their community members and neighborhoods, but also within a political landscape with our city council members, Shelby County commissioners, mayors, state representatives, and such.
Yeah, and Mr. Burgess, I think that's a good segue to you. Kind of the same question. What is your role and the assessor's role in this type of, you know, spectrum of gentrification, and how do you communicate with community members, residents, and even developers? There was a question on here about what are the benefits of gentrification to developers and trying to drive that strategic development. So I know that was a very loaded question that I just punted to you, but can you answer, you know, your role with the assessor's office, and also kind of give us an understanding of, for those who aren't really clear about what the assessor does, give us an understanding about your role, the office's role, and how do we communicate gentrification, displacement, versus investment and development to residents and community members.
Good. Hey, thank you. I think like Eric made a good point not too long ago about the population growth, and believe it or not, people are moving out of Shelby County, and that has caused our tax base to be lower. And I went to the county commission back in September and told them that we're going to have some issues because people are moving out of Shelby County. Now, one thing about my office, I see a lot of data, you know, which I saw where Orange Mound property values went down almost 30% within almost less than 10 years. And, you know, it's not by itself. And that's why, you know, I'm doing this work with the Orange Mound Initiative to try to put homes back on the roll, you know, so we can see some improvement in our neighborhoods. Because as long as you see blighted properties, as long as you see buildings burn, all of that, you're paying for it, taxpayers. You all are paying for it through your assessments, because we have to get the money somehow. So that's why I've been working with developers like Michael Greenberg. We're doing this development over here on Madison and doing that development on Cooper. I've been meeting with the Alliance Group, you know, asking them, you know, how can you work with us to go into some of our neighborhoods? Because believe it or not, it's a seller's market. You got people out here who are selling their homes. I met with NARAB and Mar last week, and they're saying that you got people who are selling their homes because the interest rates are low. So they're going either buying bigger homes or they get money off their homes and buying second homes. So, you know, everybody's trying to do what they do, trying to take advantage of this pandemic. And one thing that, you know, we're trying to look at down the road is, will our people that look like us in our neighborhoods be able to afford their property tax during this pandemic? And I've been working with the comptroller to see if we can get some extended deadlines for businesses, you know, for business schedules, anything that we can do to try to help our homeowners, because it's going to hit. But you know, we talk about the gentrification, and I think you all are all on point. But one thing we got to really look at in all our neighborhoods: how many of us can go and get a house in Whitehaven and go get an equity loan where your house is worth a substantial amount and send your kids to college? Not many, because our neighborhoods are not equipped that way. And that's why I'm trying to work on that part and get our neighborhoods back up to par, to where when you go buy a home, or a millennial, whoever wants to buy a home in Orange Mountain or wherever, that the property value is going to be up to date. I mean, it's not nerve-wracking, but it's very frustrating, because I just see how, you know, other neighborhoods, because, you know what carries Shelby County? If it weren't for Collierville, we'd be in bad shape. The average home sale in Collierville is $498,000. That's the average home sale. The average apartment rent for in Collierville is $1,600 a month, right? So if it weren't for Collierville, and now you know why they put their Mercedes-Benz place shop out in Collierville. That's where the money is, you know. But I see Eric laughing. But my thing is, Eric is and group is, I'm trying to work to see how can I build, or how can I put on the road, you know, some of these things like Orange Mound. I heard you talk about, I got some property over in New Chicago. It is unbelievable over. I can't even rent my place because the bus don't run, you know, late at night, and the guy has to walk and it's unsafe. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, you know, I'm working more on that part to try to put more homes on the road, especially in our community, you know, to where it's beneficial, where they can go to the bank and get different mechanisms to get loans on their homes. And that's a focus that I've been really working hard with in Orange Mound. But, you know, getting back to gentrification, I think you all have solved that one when you're talking about it. And I think you all understand, you know, what it's all about. And, you know, it's, I mean, you know, we did the Crosstown, of course. Now going toward the river on North Parkway, the home sales have really gone up, and they asking for more money for them. So, you know, those are kind of developments that, you know, that does an impact on those kind of neighborhoods. And one more other thing is working with University of Memphis with Dr. Sunderman. You know, we're asking them to partner with us and with the Orange Mountain Task Force to bring some of your development down Park Avenue, meaning like some of your dormitory life. Because if you notice, they took their development straight down Highland and stopped. They didn't go no further than that. So we're really encouraging, you know, to use the University of Memphis as a stepping stone to try to put Orange Mound back to where it needs to be connected. So, you know, those, like Eric said earlier, those kind of establishments that we have to get to surround our areas, you know, to make an impact. And I always tell them, you know, yeah, okay, I appreciate Super Low over in off Lamar, but you know what? How come we can't have a Kroger's or Old Navy like they have at the Poplar Plaza? How come we can't look for that? And that's what I hope you young folks will, you know, take it up, and like y'all doing a good job, you know, so people can see the vision. If you don't see the vision, you know, you won't dream it, you know. So I'm just glad to see, you know, what you all doing, Councilwoman, all you all young scholars here, to try to move that vision, make people here believe that we can do it. You ain't looking at news like that all the time. When you go through them, you ain't got to look at that and hold your elected officials accountable also. I'm elected official, you call me accountable. But I'm just,
I just want to
passionate because I see this young group that really, because Eric ran my first campaign as a county commissioner with New Path. But I'm looking at y'all's group. Y'all very smart, very intellectual. You know, just stay together and put your plan on the ground, and whatever I can do on either side, I'm here to help you. But I think y'all on the right track. But as long as you got your plan, you can do anything. And y'all, I'm glad to see a good group of people like you all.
Don't be surprised if I call you.
I just wanted to, if I can, I just wanted to say something real quickly, bouncing off of Mr. Burgess. You know, a while back, the University of Memphis did a look at where we were losing population. And this gets back to this idea of displacement through disinvestment. I grew up in Whitehaven, and I remember when I lived in Whitehaven, I didn't have to leave outside of Whitehaven for anything. It was a self-contained community. And year after year, we saw the disinvestment of Whitehaven with things going to South Haven. And so the University of Memphis has shown this, that people who lived in Whitehaven who were making good incomes just moved to South Haven. People who were in Hickory Hill with good incomes because disinvestment in Hickory Hill moved to Olive Branch. People in Fraser and Raleigh who were making good incomes moved to Bartlett and neighboring Cordova. People in Southeast Memphis who were making good incomes just moved to Olive Branch and unincorporated Cordova and Collierville. So everywhere we stop investing in communities, and that this is back to holding our elected officials accountable, that's where we saw a downward turn in those communities. And people made the same decision that anyone would make in terms of where they're gonna go to have a good quality of life, and so on and so forth. So if we're gonna talk about preventing gentrification, because again, I'm not saying gentrification doesn't exist, we're just years away from it being a prevalent problem. It may be popping up here and there in Binghamton, a little bit here in Uptown, a little bit there, but we just don't have the population numbers for it to be a prevalent problem. We are still stagnant as a community. We're not growing in large numbers. And part of how we're gonna grow is not gonna be policing our way out of our challenges. We're gonna have to invest our way out of our challenges. And that's how we're gonna grow our community so we can see development.
That's good.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So we are going to take ask one final question. We have heard of this, I can't remember who did the song, but I think it was Rick Ross that said something like buy back the block. Yeah, there you go. What are our next steps when it comes to buying back the block? Because the truth of the matter is many of us love Memphis. We are from Memphis, whether we've left and we've come back, whether we're here, we've never left, whether we may leave one day, we love Memphis and we want to see Memphis grow. We want to see Memphis progress. we also want to see, while we want to see the development, we also want to be sure that our residents, our family members are not displaced. And I think everyone has kind of sung the same song, which is displacement is the negative piece. How do we protect our city? How do we protect our family members? How do we protect one another, right? We don't know. We all know we're one paycheck away, right? We see in this pandemic, we are all just one paycheck away from being on the other side. And we need to protect not just ourselves, but one another. So what do we do? How do we move forward? We know that we need to vote. We have primaries tomorrow. So if you have not voted, you need to vote tomorrow. So that's my little tidbit, and that's my little slap on your hand. If you have not voted, you need to vote tomorrow. Take care of that. So we know we need to vote. We talk about engaging our elected officials and holding people accountable. But what else? What else can we do? What else can we do in our everyday life? What else can we do to protect our communities, to protect our homes, to protect our families, protect ourselves? And, theoretically, practically, philosophically, buying back the block. How do we do that? Politically, how do we do that?
So I would say first and foremost, before you do anything, you definitely have to educate yourselves. There are resources out there like organizations like Urban Land Institute. They provide a number of resources on how you should go about looking at real estate. Even if you have a question about gentrification or displacement or purposeful planning or building a pro forma, they'll tell you exactly all the CDCs, the development corporations that are locally. But the next thing after you educate yourselves is you have to have a vision. So if you don't have a vision for the community, it's easy for somebody to come in and who does have a vision and change the community. I totally agree with everything that's been said so far from Eric, Devaney, Melvin. They've presented some great points, but if you don't have a vision for your community, it's somebody else's community. So basically, once you have that vision, make sure that you are communicating with all the stakeholders, sharing your vision. Understand, like, there are local officials who can assist you in this effort. You have the wonderful Ms. Councilman Thomas, who will definitely listen to you. I mean, the way she's supporting North Memphis, Klondike, Smoky City, it's amazing. And then I spoke with Rashawn Austin not too long ago. I picked her brain. I like to talk to a lot of people. I talked to her, and basically I was like, what are your thoughts on gentrification? She said, ownership is key. It's not bad if it's you who owning it. It's only bad when it's the other folks, right? So don't let the ops get your stuff, but have a vision and understand the keys and how to own and what it takes to own. Having pride in your community. I spent about an hour, maybe yesterday, the day before, just riding around 3106 just to get a perspective of what was going on. And really what I saw was, it's more pride there than there is resources. And you saw people cutting the grass. You saw people working on homes. You saw people in the community trying to build up their community, but then you also saw some blight. You saw areas where, like I said, it just was a lack of resources. You can't buy your neighbor house, you working on your house. So you will see a boarded up home, you'll see grass overgrown here and there, but you just got to have pride in your community, pooling your resources, educating yourself, holding local officials accountable. And I would also say work with nonprofits. There's a number of nonprofits out there. You have Ms. Devaney Perry, who basically is a wealth of knowledge. She'll tell you every nonprofit that's in Memphis. And, you can work with her and individuals like that who can educate you on, just what's going on in the city. And the last thing is I said CDC. So yeah, just work with the CDCs.
Awesome. We got one more. We want to jump into Q&A.
I will just add to that question, and also to just go off of something that Mr. Burgess said earlier. I would say that expect every vacant and abandoned home, lot, or old warehouse to be redeveloped in Memphis. Like that should be the goal. The main purposes of the goal are, of course, like Mr. Burgess said, to increase property tax revenues, but then also to increase the value of investments in property and equity. But what role do you have to play in that? It's really up for you to decide, you with your family, with your neighbors. Like, do you guys want to be actors in the revitalization of your community? There are a lot of tools, and sometimes there are also a lot of barriers for us of the purchase of the real estate in the communities that we live in. But then also as advocates, we can advocate for the developments that are being passed and approved through City Council to reflect the goals, the vision, and values of community members. You have voice and you have the autonomy to, as a collective, to actually advocate for those types of developments that you know will benefit, but then also oppose those developments that you know will not benefit your community. So I would definitely say the role that we all have in this is our decision, but I hope you have the tools that you need to make the most informed decisions. And like Brent said, if you are not sure, there are resources in Memphis that can support you guys in making those decisions.
Awesome. Thank you, Devaney. We're going to do 3 questions from the audience, and I have one here that I'm also very interested in hearing you all's perspective. And I'm going to give this one to Mr. Robertson, because I think you can definitely help with this one. Gaining access to capital to acquire and purchase homes is a major barrier. How can we scale up existing efforts to qualify people that look like us, quote unquote, for loans?
That's a good question. I was just thinking about, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're talking about buying back the block, then people need to have access to capital. One of the things I thought about is when the mayor of Atlanta, Miss Keisha Lance Bottoms, when she ran, she established a goal of $1 billion in affordable housing built. And accompanying that was a fund to help with down payment assistance, aligning banks with that partnership. That's the kind of cohesive, systemic, at scale initiative we're going to have to launch in Memphis. It can't be this effort of $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 down payment assistance program. We're going to have to think strategically about how do we partner with traditional banks, how do we partner with non-traditional lenders like ourselves and River City Capital. How do we think about mortgages in some of our communities where people can buy a home in South Memphis or Fraser or in Orange Mound? How can they get a 15, 20-year mortgage on a $40,000 house? And how do we make that obtainable? How do we have loan guarantees to get the banks comfortable with making that kind of loan? How do we get our philanthropic community playing a role, providing those loan guarantees to support that kind of lending? I also think we're going to have some intentional effort to have a conversation with our appraisals, people who do property appraisals and how they think about appraisals in some of our communities. They devalue our properties in Black communities. This has been proven in a book by a brother by the name of Andre Perry and Know Your Worth, how Black communities are devalued primarily by appraisers. So we're going to have a strategic intervention with people who do appraisals and look at how do we diversify the people who are doing that. I'm not sure we have many African-American appraisers in Memphis, just as a side note. But we're going to have to think strategically. It's going to require our elected officials, people in philanthropy, and people within our banking community to think about how do we marshal the resources at scale to do this so that we can provide access to capital for people to buy homes, whether that is a $40,000 home or a larger home.
Awesome.
I'd like to
Go
add
ahead.
what Eric said about the appraisers. Of course, he's talking about the private. And on my end, what you can do, and I'm asking everybody to do this, next year in 2021, the reappraisal is coming up. So I'm asking all homeowners or business owners, if you get an appraisal that you feel is not correct, you can appeal it. And we're giving you an extended deadline because of the pandemic and because of all the mishaps. So I want you to come. I want you to come if you feel your assessment is too high. And that's something that I've been pushing since day one, so my community or my folks would know the resources we have, because my motto in my area is we value people over property. I want to see people keep their homes. So, we got all kind of tools. And if you feel that your appraisal is not right, please come see me, give me a call, and we can get someone out there to reassess it for you. And if that doesn't work, you can always appeal it. And I really want you, the homeowners to take advantage of that. You can take advantage of that.
Awesome. Let me go to the next question here from our attendees. How much of gentrification in Memphis is a jobs and income issue versus a housing price and development issue? I'll repeat it again. How much of gentrification in Memphis is a jobs and income issue versus a housing price and development issue? Who wants that one? Everybody went on mute. All right, Brent.
I mean, I really want to just echo what Eric said earlier. I really find it hard to say that we have a real, true gentrification problem in Memphis. I really think we should focus on development and educating those individuals in the community. For those lower income people in the community who may be impacted by displacement, we have to find ways to create jobs in the community that allow them to not only invest in themselves, but invest in their surroundings. I'm trying to find the best way to answer the question, because it's a difficult question, because all of those are barometers to gentrification. I can't really say one is greater than the other, but specifically in Memphis, I wouldn't say that we have a true gentrification problem, but those are all criteria that you must and should look at when you try to evaluate gentrification. Like I said, income, education, and housing prices, those are very, very huge factors in determining gentrification when it happens. For us, I really think we should focus on making sure that we're the owners. Ownership is key.
Just quickly, if I could add, right now there's something on the books for seniors where they can have their property tax frozen at the current rate. And I think in these areas where we believe that gentrification is going to happen, say in the next 7 to 10 years in parts of North Memphis and Uptown, I think we need to be getting those seniors signed up for that program around freezing their property taxes, who are seniors at a fixed income. So income is definitely a part of this, but we can do development in a way that's equitable. As I said, there's an opportunity to think about how are we, in some communities, you can buy a home for $10,000, $15,000, can put another 15 to 20 in it, but then how do you have an agreement with the bank where you can get a mortgage on that home? And so there's ways to do this equitable so that people don't have to be displaced. And then we also should be thinking about not just about new people coming into communities, but what about the existing people who are there? How are we doing minor home repair? How are we helping those seniors not be displaced and freezing their property taxes at the current assessed value? So there's things we can do to mitigate some of the income issues that can often displace people now, because we know it's coming in 7 to 10 years. we need to be putting some of these things in place now. We need to be establishing policies now versus trying to establish the policies 10 years from now when we're looking like, oh gosh, we saw what was happening in Binghamton, but we didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just add to what Eric said about the freeze. Also, they have a historic tax freeze. Like if you stay in historic district, they have that, as well as if you're a veteran. So just to add to the tax, and that comes out of Regina Newman's office, who's our trustee.
Yeah, and most people don't know that those things are already on the books. They're there. Yeah. You know, one of the things we would like to see is, how we get an organized campaign in these communities, knocking on people's doors, informing them of these policies, and just making sure that they get signed up, being proactive.
And I think that's where we fall short. I'm gonna call myself as elected official at the assessor's office, is that I found out that we need to educate our people in my office, the deeds, because people don't have wheels and they're losing their homes. And we need to do a better job now, since we are representing now all African Americans, get out to our communities and let them know what the resources. I'm like you and like other people say, they just don't know. Our people don't know. Our people just don't know. So hopefully we can do a better job at
that. Thank you. I think that leads us to our next question, which, I've been noticing that there is and I've been trying to find the right way to say this, a privilege of information and education, right? How we disseminate information, how we disseminate education, and news, right? We constantly see or hear folks who say, I just didn't know, I didn't know, I did know, and they genuinely don't know, right? And so how do we close those gaps, break down those barriers? When the protests started breaking out, I just started pushing out stuff like, what can I do today? Who can I donate to? Who's my elected official? How do I find my elected official? Brent is also running Respect My Vote 901. I saw the Instagram page where he's been creating content, and he has a team that's been creating content to help voters this election season, because we want to close that gap. We want to close that information gap, which leads us into our final question. How do we balance needed development and community improvements with maintaining community cultures? How can we disseminate information better? This is the second part to that question. How can we disseminate information better? Information like incentives, like those programs for seniors, or the folks who are interested in buying homes, the young folks who are interested in I live in Glenview, and so I am thoroughly interested in buying a home in Glenview. I was raised in Glenview. And I was talking to Archie Willis, and he's been like encouraging me and pushing me like, don't leave Glenview, don't leave Glenview, don't leave Glenview. That's why I decided to get my MA at Memphis. I was like, y'all really trying to keep me in Memphis, okay? I was this close to moving to New York, but then the pandemic hit, and I had to tell God, okay, I'll pay attention. So how do we do that? We got folks who are really interested in combating displacement and gentrification and divestment in their communities. How do we close that information gap? But first, how do we balance needed development and community improvements with maintaining community cultures? I know that's loaded. Let's get someone to take that on, and then we'll wrap up.
I think when I started the Orange Mountain Initiative, when I got the task force and I got a good group of people on, one thing I learned is when I got over to the Orange Mountain area, they had like about 6 or 7 different groups. And a couple of groups, were not up to date as far as the paperwork. And I think, that's where you start to be strong, to keep your culture within your neighborhood. Because if you don't have a up-to-date CDC, because I'm going to tell you this, the only reason that Cooper Young got started, Cooper Young in 1982 went down to the city council and got $500,000 to start Cooper Young. Well, I know a couple of times, just one time, I think with Commissioner Milton, when I was on the commission, we offered to give, I think, $250,000 to Orange Mound. I think Brittany's on. And I think there was some issues with maybe some of the state, standing or whatever the case might be. What I'm trying to say is that we got to go in and educate these different groups how to come together. We got to work together in our communities, not have like 9 or 10 different groups all going each different ways. But until we come together here, not just with these groups, but here in Memphis and Shelby County, until we come together, until we, have leadership that's going to empower Black businesses. So it's going to empower more business like Brother Hooks, where he works, going to empower more businesses where they're meaningful, where Black dollars are being made, in our community. And I think until we find that leadership, like they did in Atlanta, when it came to contracts, I think we still get some of the crumbs, but until we find that's the key. Once you get that wealth coming in, everything else pans itself out, even with education. So that's something I fought hard for on the county commission. I did the disparity study, but it went down by the wayside, and still we're just not doing enough. But until we get groups like you all who would get out there and get a knowledge of wealth of knowledge, and be at the forefront and holding people accountable and having you a plan, I think this is the panel that could do something like that. And that's what it needs, because I'm on my way down. I'm 57 years old. But so we need a group like you all. But it's and I know with Eric, he's been over by my church in Metropolitan for years. And you talk about Glenview, my parents stay right there at Barksdale and South Park on the corner. But and of course her property values, if we took my parents' house and put in Germantown, it'd be worth about $500,000, where it's only valued maybe $285 over there in Glenview. So that's what we're up against, here in Memphis and Shelby County. But I hope you guys, I think you all are our future leaders, and get out there and get you a leader that somebody's going to lead you to some of the aspects of what you want to do, holding them accountable. And and I know it's tough. I know Councilwoman Easter just got on. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. It's a good body of work. Everybody going different ways. But when can we come together? Because we dominate the Democratic and Republican numbers, but we can't come together. So I'm hoping that this group can change that attitude and just change how we do things here, especially young African Americans. So
I actually. I would say purposeful partnerships and just being in that fashion. I work with Brittany Thornton and Juice Orange Mound, but I actually would love to hear from Devaney because I feel like she probably have a really good perspective on where we go. If you got a perspective, if not, I can tell.
I don't think that I have a perspective different, honestly, from Mr. Burgess right now, when you really just talk about, when you think about and observe the state of our properties and how much they're valued in one place compared to how much they're valued in another place. I think that is one of the most significant, probably things that advance gentrification is the state of our ownership of the places and spaces that we occupy. And as we experience the displacement again of people, of our culture and our businesses, gentrification is something that kind of just plays on it. That's when we don't own something outright, or for whatever the reason, our ability to lay claim to something. And property, the ownership of property has always been the most valuable tool since the existence of people, I feel like. So our ability or inability to lay claim to something, I think, is what advances gentrification. And when you have more ownership, you have more decision-making power into whether or not gentrification affects you or your community.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much. We unfortunately have to wrap up. This has been a very robust and substantial conversation, and we know that we can talk, especially with the folks here on this live, we all can talk about this until we're blue in the face, until it's 12 o'clock in the morning, maybe even 3, and just go for hours. But we do want to respect you all's time. We do thank you for allowing us to hold y'all a few minutes after the hour. A couple of things before we close. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of you. We appreciate the work that you are doing for our community and for our city and our county. Thank you, Councilwoman Michaelyn Easter Thomas, again, my classmate, for this opportunity and for putting this on. It's a necessary conversation. But stay tuned, because this is just one part of the community conversations that Our Grass, Our Roots will be hosting throughout this time. And as long as this pandemic is going, my thing is, hey, I like a virtual meeting more than I like actually meeting. Eric, you mentioned it. It's hard to get folks into a meeting, but when it was like, oh, it's virtual, I was like, oh, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there. I ain't gotta leave. Yeah. So this is awesome. I think, I'm very grateful that technology is allowing us to do this. So be sure to continue to follow all the panelists. I believe Councilwoman Easter Thomas dropped everything, everyone's handles. I know I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, so just hit me up. My name is spelled on everything. That's just what it is, and I think everyone else's is pretty similar. So be sure to follow us on social media. That's really where you're going to get the bulk of anything new that anyone has coming up, any future conversation and panels. Follow Our Grass, Our Roots to stay tuned to all that what's happening in North Memphis. We need a South Memphis Our Grass, Our Roots. Y'all gonna what y'all gonna do? Come on, we're gonna do something. We need a South Memphis Our Grass, Our Roots.
I got a good friend named Corbin Carpenter who's an attorney. I'm gonna tell him about that.
Okay, Corbin can lead that. Just tell me what time the meetings are. If they virtual, I'm there. Nah, if they ain't virtual,
Councilwoman's looking like no more work for me.
Right. Right. So thank y'all so much. Remember, tomorrow, if you have not voted, please go out and vote. If you don't know where your voting location is, please go to shelbyvote.com. And you can also follow Respect the Vote 901, which is owned by Mr. Brent Hooks, to get more information on the
So Respect My Vote is not owned by me.
I don't know. I didn't know the language.
No, so I was instrumental in bringing it to Memphis, but it's a national campaign. And honestly, I just want to encourage everyone to vote as well. I'm not trying to take credit for it at all, because it's a millennial thing, and we are all millennials from what I can see outside of Brother Burgess up there. We all millennials. So, it's a millennial movement. So Respect My Vote is just as much yours as it is mine. So everybody, like Ms. Cheers said, go vote, get active. There are a number of things that we can continue to be involved with in the community along with voting. I respect everything that's been going on in the movement in the last few months, and this year has been devastating, actually. We all have experienced some life-changing events. So I want you guys to stay encouraged out there and, just continue to stay active and be civically engaged.
And Mr. Burgess, you kept saying, I want y'all young folks. You not out the paint yet. No, you point guard. We passing the ball to you, and then you LeBron, okay?
Y'all have the energy, y'all the technology. That's why I got George on my staff to keep me informed what y'all doing. That's why I like the young folks around me to keep me, abreast of the technology and just what's going on. That's what I mean by that. And
I know, yeah.
Of course,
it's just messing with you.
It's another, people that has to be reached, which I can't reach anymore. And I think there's, y'all doing a great job. And I think if y'all, just keep doing what y'all doing and stick together, you're a better force as a group, especially when it shows knowledge. You got a Spellman sister there, and you got Eric, Lamorne, all these guys, and Hooks, all you guys educated. And I think when people see that and you got a plan, I think that's how it looks really good when the plan is on paper and you got some professional people helping you with a plan, a redevelopment plan for maybe Memphis and some of these, that's what I'm trying to do in Orange Mound. So hopefully we can, get that going. Because my thing would be, if I ever given the leadership role, is to how can I help or I would spend all my time in redeveloping our neighborhoods, bringing them back to life, including our schools. So.
Awesome. Amen. All right, I am going to send this over, bring in our organizer, Councilwoman Michaelyn Easter Thomas. Thank y'all so much for having the panel. Thank y'all so much for having me, and I look forward to future discussions and continuing to do the work with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I just want to say a quick thank you to all of our panelists and our wonderful moderator. I know that they that the panelists can't hear you clapping, but I'm sure that you are clapping after this, as I am. And I copied a lot of these questions and pasted them into a document for further research and my own personal nosiness, just to see where people's minds are. It was very interesting to see. And you saw in the beginning how many different neighborhoods were reflected in watching this panel discussion. And that's just showing that it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in this city, we all have a lot of attention to start paying to what's going on, a lot of collaboration to start doing, and a lot of information to get to ensure that, as was said earlier, if somebody has a plan for your area, somebody got a plan. As I tell people in North Memphis got about 6 months in my head before it's just obliterated with other people who have a plan. So you just have to make sure that those plans are collaborated with, spread amongst the people, and have access points for everybody that you want to be included. So this is a community series, y'all. Gentrification isn't the only discussion, but this discussion will have a part 2. And I'll be sending that invite out to everyone who was on here, all those people on Facebook Live. It's about 60 to 70 people on Facebook Live. It's about 40, 50 something people on here. It was about 100 something people signed up. So I think we met, overseeded my goal. My goal was 25. So I'm good with today. But this is definitely a part 1. Part 2 will be coming soon with more dynamic power players in the Memphis area with information that can really help us see how we're going to move forward and what our city is going to look like, and if we're going to determine that, or if other people are going to determine that, whoever other people. So thank you all for today. Happy Wednesday. Go vote tomorrow if you haven't. You need to know who to vote for. You can hit me up. I'll let you know my personal recommendations. But make sure that you go ahead and follow all of these individuals on Instagram, Facebook. I don't really do Twitter. I'm on there, but it is what it is. So make sure that you follow everyone on those social media handles so you can keep up with what's going on. Oh, and the tax sale. Memphis City, Shelby County tax sale is happening on the, what date is it, Mr. Burgess, the 18th?
I think it is the 18th. The 18th,
August
right.
18th. You know, if you got a couple $1,000 burning in your pocket, or if you got 1,000 and your friend got 1,000, and somebody else got 1,000, and your mama them got 1,000, your auntie got 1,000, put that together and find you something to buy. The bid on their auction. You can go on civicsource.com and sign up for that. As long as you don't have any outstanding taxes due to the county or the city, I think you're eligible to bid. So I just want to
Michael, let everybody know too that they might change their date because of the pandemic. So just stay online and look online on the trustees website just in case they might change the date. So look for some
trustees website, Melvin.
Huh?
And what's that trustees website?
What's that trustee? I'm sorry. It's landbank.shelby.trustee. ShelbyCountyT.com. I'm sorry.
Hold on, repeat that one more time. Type it.
Asking George.
It's landbank.shelbycountytn.gov, everybody.
Okay.
Oh.
And we have a link.
Melvin got a technician at the house. Okay. I see.
I know you live, you millennials. Are you crazy?
That's the goal right there. That's the goal. But thank you all for joining. Make sure if you're on Facebook that you share. People can watch the live later. And thank you to all of our panelists and our moderators. I really enjoyed you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.